Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my August wrap up. So all the books that I read in the month of August. And I feel like I always should start these off by saying, like, it doesn't really matter the amount of books that you read. You read at your own pace. I just have quite a bit of time to read, and I do read pretty fast, so I can get through quite a few books. I utilize audiobooks for quite a lot of these. I think almost all of these books I did switch between the audiobook and the physical book. So I didn't do all audiobook and I didn't do all physical book. I think maybe for one of these I did, but for the rest of them it was all switching in between the two. I did go through a bout of like 2 weeks where I was just like starting a bunch of books, but I would not finish them. That was kind of like where I finished off the month at, where I really was not in the mood to finish anything. I just wanted to keep starting a bunch of books. So I'll tell you all of those because I did do my best to finish as many of them as I could before, like prior to filming this video. I could only do so much and it happens. This is honestly like the downfall of being a mood reader that reads fast. I could either finish books really quickly or I could just start 10 and not finish any of them. But that being said, I think I read like 15 or 16 books this month total, and I will give you, we're going to start with the books that I started but did not finish because there is a little bit of a stack here. And yeah, kind of give you my thoughts on them. The first one was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. It follows a girl who she cannot be touched by death, and death is actually the MMC in this book. I think technically it'd be like the Grim Reaper or something. But yeah, they've been going back and forth, and she's the only one that can like see him and feel his presence without being one of the people that like obviously he's taking. Like he can't take her, he can't kill her. She is technically, I guess, immortal if I'm not mistaken. I got like 100 pages into it and I was really enjoying it. This is definitely a book that I'm going to continue reading. I was just listening to it on Spotify and I ran out of my Spotify hours, so I stopped listening to it. But when my Spotify hours reset, I will absolutely be listening to this book again. And yeah, just because it was like this has a lot of potential to probably be like a 4-star to 5-star read for me. And Wisteria, the third book in this trilogy, just came out like within this past week, so I'm really excited to get into this one and to finish it. Then I also started People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I read Beach Read this month and we'll talk about that. I loved that book so much, but then I like really was honestly just getting so far into the fall vibes that it was so difficult to want to pick up anything else that was like set in the summertime. I'm still probably going to read these books without it being summer, just because I really am not a summer person and I don't really need books that are set in summer in order to like feel all the vibes. So I think I'll be fine reading the rest of Emily Henry's books without it being any kind of summertime, if that makes sense. This follows two main characters who grew up like they were best friends for a really long time, and they would always go on vacation together until like 2 years prior to when this book happened. Something happened, they have not spoken to each other, and then we pick up when the FMC asks the MMC to go and take one last vacation with her, because I think she's like a travel blogger basically, and so she asks him like, hey, let's go do this one more time for old time's sake, and they go on one more vacation together. I'm only like 100 pages into this one as well, but I'm enjoying it. I love Emily Henry's writing. I don't think I'm going to enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed Beach Read though. I could see this probably being like a 4-star read. Then I also started The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is actually one I'm planning on finishing in September at some point, because I was really enjoying what I was reading. This follows the main character who she goes and she stays in her now passed aunt's apartment, and whenever she goes into this apartment, she meets this guy who is from 7 years in the past. So it's the 7-year slip. Like she's in the future, or she's technically in the future from his point of view, but she's like in her timeline. And whenever they're in this apartment, it's this guy from 7 years past, and he's like really attractive and she really likes him, and it's just like, and I've heard so many good things about this book. I do think I'm going to end up rating it probably around like 4 stars, so I'm excited to finish it. It's an interesting read so far. It's very interesting. Then we have Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer, and my only issue with this one, and the only reason why I didn't finish it, was because the narrator I really did not like. This was one that I actually only did the audiobook for. I was not reading this physically and I was not having having a good time with the narrator. So I put the audiobook down, and I think I got like 50 to 60% of the way through. I will be finishing this hopefully this coming month, but it will be physically because I could not do the narrator. I was really enjoying the storyline though, because the main character, she's so like quippy and funny and quirky and just like kind of weird, and it's more like a Grumpy Sunshine type deal where like she is having to be an apprentice to this villain because she really has no other work choices, and so she's being like an assistant to this villain, and it's so freaking cute. I was loving it so much, but yeah, just like the narrator was not doing it for me. So the next two I am like less than 20 pages into, but I still wanted to add it to this list because I did start them and I would like to finish them in September. But I started Bunny by Mona Awad because I've been wanting to know what the deal was about this book. I've heard so many things about it, but nobody's really said anything to me about what it is. They've just said like it's like crazy, and I don't know. So I started this audiobook. I have it loaded on my Audible, so I want to continue to read it and see what it's about. I honestly couldn't tell you what it's about. I didn't get far enough into it to really be able to figure out a storyline to tell you, and I don't want to read the back because I don't want to get spoiled for it. So yeah, just know I did start Bunny, and then I also started Vacation Wars by Megan Quinn. This was just one I needed to pick me up. I needed something to like, I know that was going to make me laugh and something that was going to make me happy, and Megan Quinn's books are so good for that. She's such a funny author. Like, she writes the funniest stuff. It's about this girl who goes to Santorini, and she met this guy like a long time ago, and she like really made a fool of herself in front of him, and she calls him like Red Shorts or something. She actually calls him something different, but I'm not gonna tell you what she calls him. She goes again this last time, and she ends up meeting him. It's just like really funny, and I enjoy that. So this will probably be one of the last like summer books that I read for this year. I do think it's going to be in between either 3 to 5 stars. So we'll see. So those were all the books that I started this month. Now we're going to get into all the books that I finished this month. This is not in any order. I did not care to order these in like timeline in order of me reading them. The first one up, we have The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. This follows a woman. Oh my gosh, this is going to make me cry thinking about this again. I cried while reading this book. Okay, if you're hearing all this stuff about like this book specifically being sad and it's making you want to cry, just know I am not a crier. Okay, I don't cry easily. I don't cry often. Books that are like supposed to be really sad and emotional, 9 times out of 10 do not make me cry. I actually cried. There are multiple videos on the internet of me crying because of this book. It follows this woman whose brother is in the military, and he's like deployed, he's gone. She has 2 kids, or she's not with the kid's father anymore, and so she's like by herself, and she ends up finding out that her brother did not make it. So her brother Ryan sends his friend to come and basically take care of his sister and her two kids, because she's gonna be alone. Like, her parents, she doesn't really have anybody. It's literally just her and the kids, and previously Ryan, but Ryan didn't make it. And so look, when I tell you this book had me bent every which way by the time I finished it, I was in tears. Rebecca Yarros did not have to do this to any of us. Star rating, 5 stars. Look, it's a part of my rating system, okay? If a book can make me cry, it's automatically 5 stars. I don't make the rules. Then the next book that I read was actually for the first book for our Patreon book club. If you have not joined the book club besties yet and you would like to just join the book club, I would absolutely do it. The link will be in the description. But we read The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood this month, and it was so good. This was not a book that I would have picked out for myself if it had not been for the book club. I don't know what it was about it. I just like, I had seen it before. I had seen it kind of circulating around, and I really just did not have any interest in picking it up. And when they picked it for the book club, I didn't know how I was going to feel going into it, but it follows this girl who has a kind of, she dies, okay? She dies, but it's really funny how she dies. It sounds so bad, but like, you'll understand like if you read it. It's a funny way. It's a funny thing that she like added into the story. And so she gets to the afterlife, she meets this woman Merritt, but she also meets this man, okay? She meets this mystery man, and they're flirting or whatever, and it's just like, it seems like love at first sight, okay? Well, Merritt ends up making a deal with Delphi, the main character, and she's like, hey, if I'll send you back to Earth, but if you have a week to find this man and to make him kiss you, and then you can stay on Earth. And so this whole book is literally just like her trying to find this mystery guy who also got sent to the afterlife, but then he got sent back, and it's like this whole ordeal. It was the funniest but emotional, most insane book that I've ever read. I genuinely don't think I've read a single book that was like this in any way. I loved it. I had so much fun with it. I rated it 4 stars. It was so good. The only reason why it did not get a 5-star from me was because it didn't hit that like 5-star feeling. I didn't really cry. I just like, it was really, really good, but it just didn't have that oomph, if you know what I mean. Also, if you physically read this book, expect the language to be a little bit weird because they are British. I didn't realize that until I picked up the audiobook, because I've been switching in between the audiobook and the physical book for it, but they are British, and so it makes more sense when you listen to the audiobook. But whenever I was reading the physical book, I was like, this is a little funky, because me as an American, I'm not using terminology and stuff like this, and it's because they're British. It's because they're British. Then I also read Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. This is one of my more recent reads. I think I read this in the past like week or so, and I really, really loved it. I read the first half. I did the first half on audio, and the second half I read and listened at the same time, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. If you're looking for like a spooky season kind of read, I would absolutely recommend this one. This follows a woman whose mom dies in like a really weird way, and so she's trying to find the cure for this illness that killed her mother, and she ends up getting invited to this university that studies the illness that killed her mother, and that's where she meets this professor who is directly studying basically her mom's illness. So she is going under his tutelage, and obviously there's a little something that goes on in there, and it's just really good. It's really spooky, it's really creepy. That's set on this island. It has worms crawling out of people. It's really good. If you're wanting like a spooky kind of dark academia, like very kind of culty almost vibe, this is a book that I would absolutely pick up. She is thick, so I would probably recommend picking her up on Kindle Unlimited, because she is on there. Oh, which by the way, books that are on Kindle Unlimited that I've mentioned so far, Vacation Wars is on Kindle Unlimited, as well as The Last Letter is also on Kindle Unlimited. So if you guys want to pick those up on your Kindles, that's where I would do it. Then we also have Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I absolutely adored this book to death. I loved this book so much. It follows this woman who is separated from her husband. She has a couple of kids, and her mom was really like the grounding for her and her family. Like, her mom helped her out a ton, and they were just super close. And whenever we pick up in the story, her mother had passed away, and so it's about her like basically just trying to figure out how to deal with life again. And she ends up meeting this guy who is just so out of the norm of what she's used to, and it's just such a sweet and romantic, the depth in which it goes into the relationship between a mother and a daughter, and how important that is. It's so good. It's so good. I rated it 5 stars. I absolutely adored this book. I had so much fun with it. It was so good. It was so good. If you've been like trying to figure out if you should pick it up or not, I absolutely would. There's no spice in it. It's just good. It's just good. I can't say enough good things about it. I absolutely love that story, and we'll be revisiting that next summer probably. Then I also read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and I'm literally just now actually looking at the cover of this book, and that is so much creepier than when I wasn't really paying attention to it. But I again very much enjoyed this book. This was a different read than what I had normally been reading from Riley Sager, because I started out with The House Across the Lake by him, which was a wild ride. Then I read Middle of the Night by him, which was again a very wild ride. I got through like half of Final Girls and I DNF'd that. This one though was so interesting. It follows this girl who, like, she needs money bad. She needs a place to stay really, really bad. And so she ends up getting this job looking after this apartment. They're paying her a ton of money to go and apartment sit. And she finds out other people in this apartment are also apartment sitting. It's just like, it's this really big apartment because there are celebrities that stay there and a lot of very, very, very rich people that stay there. And then people start going missing from this apartment building, and it's just this insane thing where she's trying to figure out like what is happening, but she also wants to cash her check. And listen, I don't blame her for that. Okay, like, cash a check, cash it, give it to me, you know what I mean? Like, I'll apartment sit for $4,000 a month, so it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I would probably rate this book like a 4 stars, just because it was not something, it was like, it wasn't a book that like after I finished I sat back and was like, whoa. Whoa. You know what I mean? There were a couple of things that like didn't necessarily make sense to the storyline as to like why they were there. For that reason, and like the general feeling that I had after finishing it, it was not a 5-star, but I would absolutely recommend it for spooky season. It was very creepy. It was very weird and just wild, and I had a very, very fun time with it. I think with this one, I also did the first half was audiobook and the second half was physically reading it. So both ways worked very, very well. Then I also read Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. This was actually a book that I finished the month prior from July. I started this book when it came out and I DNF'd it. And then I went back this month to finish it. And if we're being so honest with you, I kind of wish I just had DNF'd it. It's just like, it was a really good concept for me, but I did not necessarily like the execution. It felt really slow, and I liked the characters' personalities together. It didn't feel like really anything was happening, and I really was disconnected from everything that was happening, and I didn't really care about either of the characters. And so I don't know. I liked Butcher and Blackbird a lot more than Leather and Lark, and the epilogue just kind of like ruined it for me, to be so honest with you. I just didn't, I didn't really care for it. So it just, it was not a fan favorite. Honestly, like, I don't want to rate it a 2 stars because I feel like that's a little bit harsh, but it's not getting any higher than a 3 from me. So maybe we'll put it there, but I just, like, the writing wasn't bad. I liked the writing, but like, I did not really like or care for any other part of this book, to be so honest with you. I feel really bad saying that because I love Butcher and Blackbird, but that one was not it for me. And I think that is also on Kindle Unlimited as well. Then I also did It's a Date Again by Geneva Rose. I think I started this back in like June or July, something like that. I got through like 20 or 30 pages of it, and then I went back and finished it this month, and it was a cute read. It was really fun. It's on Kindle Unlimited if you want to pick it up. It follows this girl who gets into an accident and she ends up like having amnesia. Like, she doesn't remember anything about herself or her life prior to the accident. And when she wakes up in the hospital, 3 guys come into the room and are like, hey, I'm your boyfriend, like, we're dating right now. And yeah, she's trying to figure out what's going on, what is happening, and who are these men, and how do I know them? And she's essentially having to date them all to kind of figure out like who her true love is, basically. It was good, it was funny, it was quirky, and I enjoyed it. It was not anything that I like went crazy over. I rated it a 3 stars, which I think is pretty accurate. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't great, if that makes sense. I had fun with it, and the writing in that one was better for me than when I read The Perfect Marriage, because Geneva Rose also wrote The Perfect Marriage, and I liked that one more than I liked that one, if that makes sense. Then probably the craziest read that I had this month was Hidden Pictures by Jason Recolak. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. That was a shot in the dark. This follows a woman who, she needs a job really bad. She's a recovering addict, and she ends up getting this job being a nanny for this family. And when she starts working with this family, this kid that she's working with he likes to draw. He's a drawer, he likes to draw, and the pictures go from being really like kid-like, really normal, to being really, really weird and creepy. And so the main character is like, hey, like, something's off here, and she's trying to figure out exactly what's going on with this kid. This was one of the craziest books I have ever read. I still really don't know how I feel about it. If to rate it, honestly, would be a 4 star. I think it's been like 2 weeks since I've read this book. It's at least been a week since I've read it, and I still don't know how I feel about it. I would rate it a 4 stars. I don't think it deserves anything lower than that, but I don't think it deserves anything higher than that. It was kind of uncomfortable. I don't know, like, it didn't sit right with me, I guess, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was just some things about it that like made my spirit uncomfortable. And yeah, there's just something about this book that like after reading it, it just didn't make me feel good. You know what I mean? So would I recommend you read it? Do some self-reflection and figure out if it's something that you want to read. Like, thinking back on this book now makes me not feel right. It makes me feel kind of like dark, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know. That book is, that's weird. It's weird. Okay. Then on to the highest rated book for this month. Literally, like, one of the 2 highest rated books that I've read for this month was Beach Read by Emily Henry. I absolutely adored this book. It was so freaking good. I know so many people have issues with Emily Henry's books because a lot of them feel like not a lot goes on, but the thing that I love about Emily Henry's books is that they're real. Like, these 2 main characters are the realest main characters I've read about in a really long time. It follows January and Gus, and they're both authors, and January, after losing her father, she goes and stays at this house that he has, and next door is Gus, who is her high school rival. They did not really get along when they were in high school. So they're both in writing slumps because they're both authors. They end up making a pact to like switch genres. They have to write a book switching genres, and whoever sells their book first to like get published or whatever wins, and the other person has to endorse the book. And it's just such a good read. The themes between like families and your parents, and like your parents are doing the best that they can, but they're human too. They are going to fail, they're going to do things wrong, but like you grow up thinking that they're these infallible superhuman people that like can literally do no wrong, and then as you get older you start to see the cracks and you start to see that they are human and they do make mistakes and they do fail, and just reconciling with that as an adult, but also learning to love them in a different way as an adult. It's just, I'm gonna get emotional thinking about it, but like it's so good. It's so good, and I love it so much. I would rate it 10 stars if I could. It was a 5-star read. I want to go back and reread it already. I've ordered 2 special editions of it, and I'm really not the kind of girl that like orders a bunch of special editions, but it was so good. It was so good. If you are on the fence about wanting to pick it up, I would at least give it a try, because this is one of those books that like will forever stick with me and has made me look at writing, reading, and just the world differently. And that may sound dramatic, but it's one of those books, and I love it. And if you have not read it yet, please go read it. Please go read it. Then on a very, very different note, I also read The Devil Wears Scrubs by Frida McFadden. Now this is actually one that I only did the audiobook for, and this was really, really weird. So I don't know what the actual like purpose of this book was. That like, to me, there really is no storyline for this book. Like there wasn't one at all. It's following this like med student who is making rounds in this hospital, and her boss really sucks, and there's this hot doctor that she like has a thing with, and it's just like, it's weird. It's weird. I don't know what this book was, because I was expecting it to be somewhat of a thriller because it's Frida McFadden, and then I go and look at the genres like after I finished the book, because I literally, the last sentence of the book, I'm like, it's over? Like, what was this? It said it was supposed to be like a contemporary like med student book, but there was literally no plot from what I could see to this book. It was literally just like you followed some characters for a couple of days, and like that was it. So yeah, this was just an interesting, weird read for me. I'd give it like 3 stars, because I don't want to give it 2 stars because it wasn't necessarily bad, but it also like, it just wasn't anything. I don't really have any emotions towards it other than like, huh? You know what I mean? I've read the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, and I have what I feel like is a more of an interesting take, because I have not seen a lot of people rate these books the way that I've rated them. I've seen a couple, but I gave A Good Girl's Guide to Murder 4 stars. It was good. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. Good Girl, Bad Blood was at most a 3-star for me. And then As Good as Dead got a 5-star for me. This is the reason, okay? I went into this trilogy obviously expecting it to be like 3 different cases. If you don't know what these books are about, this one follows Pip, who is, for her capstone project, which is just like her school, like it's a research paper basically, she researches the disappearance and like murder trial of a girl in her hometown from a couple of years prior. Everybody in the town had blamed Sal Singh, her boyfriend at the time, for the murder. Whenever we're following Pip in the story though, she does not think that Sal did it. She thinks that everybody just kind of like put it on him circumstantially. And so she goes into this and she solves the murder basically. And so you're following this whole case of her trying to figure it out. Then in this book, we get a weird like turn, and she's following a different case. So that's kind of to be expected when you have a trilogy like this, like you're expecting a different case. But then this one connects to the first book. So the reason why I did not necessarily love Good Girl Bad Blood was because it genuinely did not feel like it was a part of the trilogy at all to me. Like, the characters that we met from this book, we ended up coming back to for the third book, so like that was cool, but everything else, it really felt like these two books could have been a duology or a duet. It would have been a 5-star duet for me. This book just kind of diluted it, I guess, a little bit more. Overall, I would recommend these books if you have a teenager in your life that wants to read mystery and thriller, or you just like true crime stuff, or you just want like a YA book where, you know, you're not really worried about the spice or anything like that. You're more so worried about, you want a true crime aspect. You just want to have fun. This trilogy was fun. I got through it very quickly. I had fun with it. It definitely, like, I had a good time reading these books, but it was an interesting read. Like I said, I feel like if the second book, either if she had done like a different case with it or if she had gone a different direction with it, it probably would have been rated higher for me, but it just felt so disconnected from the first book and the third book that I had a hard time reconciling why I read it, I guess, if that makes sense. So those are my thoughts on those. But I would recommend them. At the end of the day, I would recommend them. I would just keep in mind that the second book has very little to do with the first and third book. Then starting off like my fall reading for real was Gothic Cant by Runix. I had no clue what I was expecting when I went into this book. Genuinely, I had no idea what I was looking into. The cover is absolutely beautiful, and I took a chance on it, and I was pleasantly surprised. So this follows a girl who had been homeschooled her entire life. She had never gone to school. It had literally just been her and her mother until she went to this kind of like college, basically like a starter college kind of, but everybody who goes to this college has had a very rough past, and so it's kind of just like a way to like help all these kids, you know, figure out a life path beyond that school. Well, she goes there and she ends up finding out about some things that had happened. Like, it happens every 5 years. And it's not very good. They're all trying to figure out like what's happening. Things start going so wrong. People end up going missing. People end up dying. It's this whole like high stakes situation where she's trying to figure out like what in the world is happening right now. I will say, the only thing that I didn't necessarily love about this book was that it was just like a lot of spice with a character that really has had no life experiences. She ends up getting with the professor in this book. It's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the book. It's her professor, and she has had, like I said, 0 life experiences because she's been homeschooled her entire life. And so it was like, that part was, thinking back on it, that part is a little uncomfy. I enjoyed it at the time because it was just like a part of the plot, but like looking back on it, yeah, it's a little strained. It's a little weird, but overall it was good. I would probably rate it like a 3.5 stars now, just because I did read Nocticadia afterwards, and I think after reading, if I had read this book after Nocticadia, I probably would have rated it like a 2 stars, but I read it before Nocticadia, so it got a higher rating because I really enjoyed it. But if you have the option between reading Gothic Cant or Nocticadia, I'd probably read Nocticadia, not gonna lie. Alright, then the last book that I read this month was The Fury by Alex Michaelides, and this was the only book that I had not read by Alex. I read The Silent Patient and I read The Maidens, and this was his newest release, and I absolutely loved it. This book was like loosely inspired, or I would say, yeah, loosely inspired by like Agatha Christie and Greek mythology and stuff like that. It follows a set of characters who go to this Greek island because an actress like invites all of them to go to this Greek island, and then things end up happening. Somebody ends up dead, and it's just like, it's this whole thing. But the way that it's told is so interesting. It's told from one of the friends who's not really the main part of the story, but like he's in the group, but he's not the main people in the group, I guess, if that makes sense. And so he's the one telling this story, and he's telling it as it's happening, and like it's going back and forth between timelines. It's just so good. It was such a short, quick read, but it was amazing. I had so much fun with it. I was literally like trying to put all the pieces together the entire time. I love Alex Michadialis as a thriller writer. Like I've loved all 3 of his books, and this was not any different. This was the most interesting storytelling wise, like the way the story was told. It definitely was giving like Agatha Christie vibes. Like I've only ever seen the movies inspired by her books, but this book made me want to go pick up some of her books. So if you're looking for a reason to go pick up another one of his books, absolutely do it. It was so good. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of August. I'm expecting September to be a really, really good month for reading, not just quality wise. I'm so excited for it. I think I'm gonna have a really, really good time. I want to know like what your highest rated books were this month. Give me actually your highest and your lowest rated book. I want to know kind of what we were reading in the month of August. It's really fun to go back and revisit all of the books that I read throughout the month, because I rarely ever like really think about them unless they really, really stick with me. So this is always fun to go down like memory lane of sorts. But that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want to see my face on any other spot on the internet, all the links will be down in the description. Also, I wanted to give a little bit of an announcement. If you guys are ever interested in any of my bookish stuff that I wear, a lot of it is from one place, and that is the Hiking Hounds Co. on Instagram. She has an Etsy shop, I believe, and she's also on TikTok, and I absolutely adore it. Like most of the stuff that you all see me wear, specifically like in my vlogs or anything, it's normally I'm wearing it by her. A lot of my like Jesus stuff is from her. She gave me a reference code. It is Jolie10, just to let her know that I sent you if you guys do end up picking out any of her stuff. I will put her links in the description as well, so you guys can kind of see like the stuff that I've gotten from her, but I absolutely love. But yeah, I also do have the Patreon book club if you guys want to go ahead and join on there. I'll put that link in the description as well. We are reading The Spell Shop, and we're also reading The Pumpkin Spice Cafe this month to kick off fall. But other than that, I think that's it, and I will see you guys in the next one.